Hey everyone, welcome back to the next episode of Knowledge is Money, and today we will be talking about the Washington Quarter. The Washington Quarter was started in 1932, and it was intended to be a commemorative coin marking the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, which was in 1732. It was intended to be that way, but then somewhere along the lines it was decided to change the Standing Liberty Quarter into the Washington Quarter and use it as a circulation strike. It may have just been because of the way the design was. I'm not 100% sure on that. If anybody knows, you can always put that down in the comments. But I think they were just growing weary of the design. They didn't like the Standing Liberty as much. They wore down a lot. And you also had a depression, which caused that there were no quarters made in 1931. They decided to bring this in. And it was just intended for that 1 year, but ended up being released up through, and they were made in silver, just like any other coins at the time would have been, up until 1964 when they removed the silver out of circulating coinage. This right here happens to be a 55 Denver silver. And as you would notice, the quarter is still used to this day, the same Washington quarter. All they did was, in 1964, they removed the silver, so this same coin was produced. This is the silver, and then this is a non-silver. So they did the same coin, they just removed the silver. And they also did the bicentennial with the same obverse, and they put a colonial drummer boy reverse. And even to this day, they had modified the obverse of the coin, and they started putting states. This happens to be a Georgia, but they started to put state quarter reverses, and then they went to Washington D.C. and the territories. And now they're doing national park quarters up until, I think, 2021, I think. But we're not really going to talk about those too much in this video, because all of the state quarters and territorial quarters, and along with the bicentennial quarter, as a matter of fact, will be in a separate video series. We're going to do those separately with the modern stuff. But that was the intent. It was just to honor George Washington, and they went out and had some sculptors give them some designs, and this is what they came up with. Okay, the design of the Washington Quarter. We're not going to talk about the state quarters or any of that stuff. So, the design of the Washington Quarter, the obverse has Liberty at the top, "In God We Trust" to the left, the date at the bottom, and a portrait bust of George Washington. On the reverse of the coin, you have a eagle, and above the eagle is United States of America, and then in the center is E Pluribus Unum, and down below is quarter dollar. And this was not the first design that was done, but it was the one that was approved and was very liked by the mint. The designer initials of the coin on the obverse of the coin, you will see down on the base of the neck by the ponytail, you see a JF for John Flanagan. Alright, the designer of the Washington Quarter was John Flanagan, and he was a sculptor. And he also designed medallions and other things like that. And he worked with St. Gaudens a little bit, but this is what he came up with for his version of the design. Ended up being this after they modified it to what they wanted. This is the only coin that he made, but he did do a lot of other types of things. And I will note, this is a state quarter. He did not design the reverses of these, obviously, because he had already passed away by the time they did this. But the obverse of the coin, where they changed the obverse, this is still Flanagan's design. They did not say that it's not his anymore. What they did is another person just went in and modified it. So what they did is they kind of just accented the hair out a little bit, and made the ponytail stick out a little more. But the design is still credited to Flanagan. It's actually double credited. But the original quarter was all Flanagan's design. Alright, specifications of the Washington quarter. There were two types. The first type is exactly the same as previous coins, being the Barber quarter and the Standing Liberty quarter. They were all silver, and it would have weighed 6.25 grams, would have been 90% silver, 10% copper, which would have been 0.18084 ounces of pure silver, and had a diameter of all the quarters had diameters of 24.3 millimeters, and they have reeded edges. Now, when they switch to the clad, which is what most of them are, you'll notice that really these are all similar throughout the coins. You'll notice the same with the dime and with the Kennedy half dollar and so on and so forth. What they did with those is they modified just basically the weight. That's all that really changed, was the weight and the material. Is it weighed 5.67 grams, and it was outer layers of copper nickel, which is 75% copper and 25% nickel, and it was bonded with an inner core of pure copper, and it had the same 24.3 millimeter edge, and it had reeded edge. Alright, mint marks and locations. They were made at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco Mint. And in the early days, the San Francisco Mint also had the circulation ones, being from 1932 up until the 1950s. They had circulation San Francisco's. And this is a 55 Denver, and on the old silver versions, the mint mark was below the eagle, up above the R and quarter dollar. Up above the R and quarter. And then in 1965 through 67, they didn't put any mint marks on them at all. And in 1968, when they brought them back, they decided to put the mint mark on the obverse of the coin, which would be, it's a little hard to see, but it's over next to his ponytail end. And at that time, you would have only gotten Philadelphia and Denver minted ones, and the S minted ones would have been proof only coins and silver proof coins. So that's the three mints that they were made out of, the three mints that are pretty much used today. Alright, mintages. The first thing we'll start out with in mintages is every clad coin, very affordable. They were all made in the millions and in some cases billions. Most of them were in the hundreds of millions or higher for the circulation strikes. And even the proof coins from the late 60s up until now, the clad proof coins, were all in the 2 to 4 million range, so they were very, easy to acquire. And we're only going to talk up until 1998 because we're not going to talk about the new stuff. But the only ones of note of that era is from 1992 to 1998. The silver proofs are under $1 million a piece. They're usually, except for the 92, which is a little over $1 million, all the other ones are under $1 million, 750, between 500,000 and 750,000. So that's the whole clad set. So if you want just this basic design clad set, you can pick them all up very affordably, 2-3 times face value maybe. Now for the silver variety, the ones you want to watch out for, 1932, the first year, had $5.5 million, but the Denver of 32 was only 436,000, and the San Francisco was only 408,000. So those are ones that you want to pay attention to. Also, some of the earlier ones, like the 35, the 34, the 35, the 36, 37, that all have mint marks, so the D's and S's of those are below 5 million, so those are, a little bit hard with the silver melts that have happened. And the same thing through the late 30s into the, up until about 1940. The mint mark ones are very low millions to get. But from 1940 up until 1964, many of them, especially the Philadelphias, are very acquirable. They made millions of them. Lowest one that I know of from that time, from 1940 to 1964, is about 3 million, which would be a few of the mint marked ones, like the 46 S was only 4 million, so some of those are small, but a lot of them from 40 to 64 are very affordable. So even with the silver ones and circulation grade, you can build most of the set, except for those few mint marks in the 30s, and the 32 D and S are going to be the hard ones of the mintages. They got the lower mintages. Alright, now we're going to get into the key dates of the series. Obviously 1932, you're going to want to get the 32, which is fairly affordable, but the D and the S can run you, they start out usually $150, $200 and go up. In 34, if you want to do a very precise and concise set, they had a double die 1934, a light motto, and a heavy motto 1934 Philadelphia mints. There's also a 37 double die. There's small and large mint mark varieties of the 41S. There's also double die obverses of the 42D, 43P, and 43S. In 1950, they had a 50 D over S and a 50S S over D. So those dies got kind of mixed up on that one. And then besides that, all the other silver stuff is fairly affordable, except for some of the proofs. Some of the early silver proofs from the 1950 is a $70 coin. But when you get into the later dates, into the 60s, those silver proofs are, $10, $12, and not a lot of money. And then when we get into the clad stuff, there's a very odd error that it is somewhat expensive to find. It's a 1970 Denver. They were lightweight. They were thin quarters that were struck in error that were intended to be dimes. So the material got the metal got mixed up. And really the only other stuff from the clad era is there's the 79 and the 81 proofs, type 1s and 2s. And again, the type 2s of both of those are rarer. And the only other stuff really are the silver proofs. You want to get the silver proofs from 92 to 98. Those would also come in. And you can with the bicentennials as well, the 40% silver bicentennials. They're not real rare. A lot of times they go for the price of the silver if you get like the set. But besides that, there's not too many other things without going into the new state quarters or any of those things, which will be in a later series. And that is the Washington quarter in a nutshell. We will have more in depth because we are going to do probably a whole series. Is going to be done later on the modern coins, like from the 2000s, and probably we're going to break it down where each episode will be like by year. So we would talk about, say, the individual design of this Georgia quarter and all the other ones from that year. So it'd probably be 10 episodes, and then we'll talk about the territorials in another episode, and we'll briefly touch upon the national parks in the next season. It'll probably be season 2 actually, because we are thinking about starting to produce those. And again, we'll also do a bicentennial, probably a special episode of just about bicentennial coinage at a later date. So thanks for watching the Washington Quarter episode of Knowledge is Money, and thanks for the support, and just keep supporting us. Comment on anything that you any concerns or any thing that might have been left out of this video, and thanks for watching, guys.